Wait a minute. I'm confused here. Weren't we going to do Silent Night, Deadly Night?
I thought we were doing Silent Night, Bloody Night.
Oh, man. Okay.
Oh man, we're talking about different movies.
2 hours later.
This week we're doing 1977's Kingdom of the Spiders. That's a movie that I've seen numerous times over the years, going way back to when I was a little kid. It's the kind of movie that would show up on late night television, your horror movie of the week, that sort of thing. It's the kind of movie that every kid saw when I back when I was that age, and eventually I rented it, copied it, and watched it more and more again. And it's truly, no spoilers here. It's one of my all-time favorite horror movies. Period. I just
That
love
was
it.
around a time where there was a lot of movies like that with like insects, and there was bees and killer bees and like different ants and things like that. There was a
Yeah.
frog one too, I think.
Yep. Yeah, there was a lot of animals gone wild in the mid 70s or early 70s, late 70s. There was ants, Empire of the Ants, the Deadly Bees, the Savage Bees. It came from the sky, or no, Tear Out of the Sky, and Frogs with Ray Milland. I've seen all of them. Yeah, there was just kind of a lot of
There
them
was also
was,
one with rabbits too, wasn't it?
yes, Night of the Lepus. Yeah, I have
Oh
that
my
one too.
God. Yeah. What was it with like people and their fear of like animals and insects and normally not that harmless creatures, you know? You would think spiders are scary looking, but for the most part, most of them you could just squash, with your shoe.
Yeah, and that actually even happens in this movie. You probably couldn't film this today, but they use real spiders for the most part in this movie, real tarantulas. And if you look in some of the scenes, those spiders got killed. They got squished. They got ran over by a car. You can even see their guts spill up at one point when a police car runs over some in the streets. Um, yeah, the ultimate thing here with these particular spiders is that there's a lot of pesticides being sprayed all over the countryside. It takes place in Arizona, near Sedona, actually, and the pesticides are kind of killing off the spiders' food supply, and it's leaving them not with. They got to find other means, so they end up attacking cows and other animals, and eventually they just go wild in the city and attack people too. I think that's ultimately what they were saying, was that man's interference is causing these spiders to run rampant and go wild.
Hmm. So for William Shatner, are you like a big fan of his?
Well, I am a big Star Trek fan. I've always loved Star Trek, and the original is awesome. I love it. I grew up with it. Um, I think he's an over actor, but I do like William Shatner. Yeah.
When did this take place in his acting career? Was this like between Star Trek and TJ Hooker? Like what around the time was he
Yeah,
shooting this?
Star Trek ended in 1969. This movie came out in 1977. Shatner actually made a lot of low budget B movies in the 70s before, after Star Wars came out in 1977, then they decided to reboot Star Trek, and the first motion picture for Star Trek came out in 1979, 2 years after this movie. So yeah, and it was before TJ Hooker, maybe about 5 years before TJ Hooker, but yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, because he's kind of known for his long-standing TV shows, but when he did movies, they would generally be movies. He was never
Right.
that style of acting wouldn't really get you in like an A-level production that can't be.
No, I think you could probably say he was an A-level TV star just from Star Trek alone, and he's obviously known as Captain Kirk from Star Trek. But beyond that, and perhaps beyond that, and maybe Kingdom of the Spiders, I think most people would be hard pressed to think of anything else he's done other than T.J. Hooker, Star Trek, and Kingdom of the Spiders.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah, I think he won an Emmy for like one of his later shows when he was older.
Yes, wasn't he in? Was it Boston Legal? Was that the name of the show with
I
James
don't
Spader?
remember, but it was something where he was like a lawyer or something, or
Yeah, I think it
yeah.
was called Boston Legal. Yeah, that's right. He made that. Yeah, he's definitely more of a TV outside of the Star Trek movies. He's definitely a TV actor.
Yeah, it's interesting to see him as a leading man here. So I think he has like kind of like a weird relationship with dead brother's wife.
Yeah, it's more the wife who's looking for that. She's obviously lonely and she's reaching out. She wants. It's clear that she wants a relationship beyond a brother-in-law relationship with Shatner. And Shatner actually pushes back and isn't looking for that. He's definitely mother or fatherly to the child that was left behind. He does look after them and take care of them, but in terms of a romantic relationship, he pushes back.
Yeah, you kind of wonder with stuff like that because you always hear about Shatner having sex with a lot of his like female co-stars, not necessarily like the main stars, but like the extras and the women who would kind of be like starstruck by his fame. So you always kind of wonder with actors like that if they have it written in that they have to be like all of the attractive women in their shows or movies have to be attracted to them, you know.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about this particular one is the widow actually was played by Shatner's real life wife at the time.
I guess then it's a little less harsh that she actually wants him because she actually does want him.
Yeah, or
Oh,
she did at that time, put it that way. But
yeah, yeah,
they divorced, I think, not long after.
yeah, yeah. So what made you watch this so much? Was it just because it was always on TV, or was there something about this particular movie that connected you to it?
Well, I think this movie particularly connects with you when you're young. It was the pre-cable days for me, and it's the kind of movie that we only had three channels where I grew up originally before cable finally got to us when I was about 11 years old. But prior to that, we had the three channels, so there wasn't a lot of entertainment in terms of TV movie wise. You had to take what was on. There was no VCRs, nothing. So when a horror movie came on, it seemed like all the kids in my age wanted to watch it, and then we could all relate to it. We could talk about it in school the next day, that sort of thing. And I enjoyed the movie. It's very memorable to me. And one of the reasons I've watched it over and over again is it does legitimately frighten me to a point because I do not like spiders. I don't like them at all. I will run from a spider. I don't care how old I am. I'm going to run from a spider. I don't like them. I will squish them if I have to, but I try to avoid them as best I can. And these spiders are big and they bite, and I don't like them. So I can remember actually when I originally rented this movie and copied it, it was nighttime and I was in my room and the light was off. I took a flashlight out when I was done just to look on the floor to make sure there was no spiders. That's what this movie did to me. So I thought if that movie did this to me, then it's got to be an effective film.
Yeah, I liked Woody Strode in this movie. He played the older black guy that gets
Yep.
killed. Because this is a weird time in cinema because a lot of the actors, black actors that got work was mainly in the exploitation films. So this was a guy who had some crossover appeal, and it was good to see him in this. But I just thought like his wife was just like not only way too attractive for him, but was like half his age. So but he kind of died stupidly, and I think a lot of these characters kind of died stupidly. But I guess they were just there for the body count because they're otherwise the side characters didn't really bring a lot to the film.
It's a memorable scene with him too. Everybody seems to remember. I, he was driving down the road in his pickup truck, and the spiders start crawling up his back, and then he freaks out and drives off the road.
That looks like Colby's truck. It is Colby.
Again, I could relate to that because if I saw those spiders crawling on my back, they're huge, I would freak out too. Hopefully, I wouldn't run off the road, but I can relate to that to a certain degree. And in regards to his wife, that was played by Altavis Davis, wife of Sammy Davis Jr., actually.
Oh wow, yeah. It's kind of weird. Like, I mean, I guess if she's with Sammy Davis Jr., I guess Strode would be an upgrade in certain ways. So.
Yeah, and from what I've read about this movie, Shatner has talked about Woody Strode, and I think he was an ex-football player. And he said, even though he was older at this point, he was in his 60s. He said, I think he was in his 60s, if not older. He said his arms were just gigantic and huge, and he was just a powerful muscle of a man.
He was in a lot of pretty good movies back then. But like I said, it was hard for black actors back then to really get really substantial roles unless it's like in those low budget exploitation stuff. So it was good to see him in this. And even though he was there to just die pretty silly in a way, But this is a silly movie, no matter how you look at it.
Yes.
What did you think about the ending? It was kind of dark the way they decided to like go about it. It was dark and silly, but I guess this movie is kind of silly anyway. But I expected more of an upbeat ending than what
Y-
this movie had.
y- Yeah, and I think what gets me about that any more than anything is just it's so memorable. Even if somebody hasn't really seen this movie over and over and over again, like I have, they will always remember that scene. It's just kind of like a nightmare, the fact that this whole town is covered with a giant web. It's ridiculous, of course, but yeah,
And the
it's
length
very
of
memorable.
time it would take to weave that web, it's just like to have some plausibility to your story, the amount of spiders and the amount of time. And this is certainly not The Birds, so it won't be remembered on that kind of a level. But I guess it's a nice little campy movie for those interested. I guess it's definitely a recommend, but definitely nothing you take too seriously. For me, like this is a little bit older for me. So for me, like the spider movie I kind of remember from childhood is more so arachnophobia,
Mhm.
which is also kind of like but that is more tongue in cheek than this is. This is more like unintentionally funny at times, and arachnophobia was intentionally funny, I guess would be the main
Right.
difference.
And I can point out a friend of mine and myself, we've been obsessed with Kingdom of the Spiders since we were kids. He even more so than I did. He would watch it literally every Saturday night for years. Um, but because of this film, that's the reason we decided to go see Arachnophobia together, because we both had a fear of spiders. We both love this movie, so why not go see Arachnophobia? And that's what we did, which we also liked very much.
How would you stack them up against each other?
Well, like you said, they're different films. This is more of a B film, a campy film, although I do think it's well done for what it is. Arachnophobia had, a bigger budget and was just had a better look to it, more stylish. But um, I like Kingdom of the Spiders more. Again, there's a nostalgia factor for me too, of course,
Mhm.
but they're
Oh,
both good. Having a fear of spiders also helps too, because that instills some real fear in me, and I don't. And if a film can scare me, which is it's really hard to do because I am so jaded after seeing so much carnage over the last several decades. But if film can legitimately scare me, I gotta say it's a good film. I
yeah.
want to be scared.